I'm back with the real project. This is the actual rug, and I have gotten as far as finishing with the green, and I'm at the point where I need to introduce the blue to take over from the green. I'll still be using the brown. Before I do that, I just wanted to mention something about floats. So as you go along alternating colors, the back of your work is going to have floats. This is obviously not the Kiki Mariko. It's a hat with a much more complicated stitch pattern, so the floats are more complicated. But the point is that the floats should just easily span the width of however many stitches they need to span. You don't want them too loose, so they're like Christmas garland, and you definitely don't want them too tight, because in that case they will pucker the fabric on the front and distort your finished object. So keep an eye on your tension. You know, actually check every once in a while. You can flip it over and look. Do things look neat and orderly? Are they looking too loose? That's not usually the problem. It's usually that they're looking too tight, and in that case you'll probably be seeing it in the front where you're getting kind of gathered or puckered fabric. So just be honest with yourself. This is a great project for practicing your tension, because since it's going to be felted, if there are some small irregularities, nobody's going to know, and that's a really comforting thought. All right, so here I am ready to join the new color, and the new color will always get joined right in the middle of the steek stitches, so it'll be hidden. And I think if you don't run across any problems, you can put all of your ends right in this same place that we'll be cutting into at the end of the project, and that'll be great. I know from reading the threads, a lot of people did not weave in their ends, so maybe that's an option. That sounds crazy to me, but we'll see. So I am ready to start with the blue, and it makes sense that it would be right on top of a brown stitch, because these steek stitches are supposed to be like a checkerboard where it goes color A, color B, color A, color B right across, but it also goes color A, color B, color A, color B up. So that's a good sign. It seems like things are on track. And so then there'll be one stitch that's brown, and another stitch that's blue, and another stitch that's brown. And now I'm faced with the edge stitch, and the edge stitch I should say the edge stitches are special cases. This is the one on the left. Here's the one on the right. This edge stitch I made green because the last rug stitch in this round was green. And the two stitches on either side of your steek markers should always be the same color. And now I need to find out from the chart, what color will my first stitch in this round be? So let's find out. It's round 5, and that starts with 2 brown. So this stitch is going to be brown, and therefore this stitch must be brown, even though I just did a stitch in brown. And because I'm doing a stitch in brown, 2 here and 2 here, that means I'm going to have 4 in a row. And this is the place where I would catch a float. I wouldn't if it was 3. That's just my own personal rule. I definitely am not catching floats when I'm doing just 2 stitches. But if it's 4 stitches or more, I will catch the float. And here's how I do it with the yarn in either hand. I enter the stitch I want to work. I lay the yarn to be caught over the right hand needle. I use the yarn that's supposed to make the stitch and just let that blue yarn hang to the back, and now it's over the top of the brown yarn and it's caught. If I was not holding a strand in each hand, I would want to, before I worked with the brown yarn, I would want to lay the blue yarn over it and then I can knit with the brown yarn and the blue yarn will be caught. So either way works just fine. And there's going to be one more brown stitch here, and then 2 blue stitches, and then 2 brown stitches. And you want to make sure that you're giving them the opportunity to be as big as they want to be on the needle. You don't want to work real crunched up like this, because then you are probably not giving the yarn in the back enough room to do what it needs to do. And maybe it's hard to see in the video, but I can definitely tell in person that those 4 stitches are not going to be good. So let's get them out of there. When I have the yarn one strand or one color in each hand, I don't have too much trouble making sure that what I'm holding in my left hand is loose enough. But my right hand, it's a little harder for me to make sure they're loose enough. So what I do before I start working with the right hand yarn, I've inserted my needle ready to work with the right hand yarn. And I pull the stitches down and away from each other on the needle. And then I work it gently with the yarn in the right hand. And that way, this brown yarn, which was in my right hand, has been able to stretch across the back of these 2 blue stitches in such a way that it's not cramping their style. They're just doing what they need to do. And then back to the blue yarn. I think it's usually more of a subtle movement. I pull the needles apart a little bit, and that lengthens this blue yarn, and then I make the stitches. I insert my needle, manually pull down on the already made stitches, and then use the brown yarn. In my case, I have to be a little careful not to get just too loose, but just play around with things and see what works for you, and you'll hit a rhythm and it'll be consistent. Now, if you were not holding the yarn in both of your hands, just pick up the strand to be used and maybe, make sure that you're not stretching it too tight. Make your 2 stitches, drop it, maybe move the stitches away from each other again. Make sure you're working in a relaxed way. Think calm and gentle thoughts, and drop this strand, and then pick up the blue strand. I'm using my right hand, but you can certainly do this using your left hand. Drop the blue strand, pick up the left strand, pick up the brown strand. Drop the brown strand, whoops, pick up the blue strand. Oh, this is another good point. Make sure you have enough feeding out of the ball, especially if you're doing from the center. That'll help you be loose too. Things tend to get kind of cramped up, and I'm trying to pull on the yarn while I'm making my stitches. That can make things too tight. There we go. Drop that one, pick up this one, and just on and on all the way around the piece. I am really enjoying working with this yarn. I like how it feels. I love the colors. I love that I don't have to think about this pattern at all. Once I have figured out what's the first stitch, it's either going to be 2 of the same color or only 1 of a color, and then you move on to the next color, and then it's just 2, 2, 2, 2, 2 all the way around. So you can really do it on autopilot and just kind of enjoy all of the sensations that are coming across your hands and into your eyes while you do it, as opposed to, thinking a lot.